Welcome, my friends, this is Maniacal Incorporated, and you join me in the vanguard of Flanshina's great army as it marches through Leinster, what was once upon a time Leinster, captured by the Vikings of Dublin. Now Dublin has fallen, and two large Viking armies are moving to do battle with Argyll, with Ellach, and what little remains of our allies in Bray. We don't care about that, though. We're going to continue mopping up in this region. Now, this is a bit of a problem, because, of course, Cashel controls one of the regions that we want. They have gone to war recently, or they had gone to war, with Irvuin. So I'm not too sure, and I think Irvuin actually also has land that we want, so it's kind of a complicated... It's kind of a complicated scenario. I'm going to reject that.
It would have been a fine thing, no matter.
It would have, but I need your land. So Aramon has increased his industriousness. Did we see some rebel forces marching in this direction? We did, from what I understand. A rebel army marches on Glendalough. And here we have an army at Kilmore, just to the north of our son's army. His numbers still aren't great. Entertainment from the arts should not be accessible by the privileged few, encouraging the practice and indulgence in pastimes such as music and theatre throughout society will result in a more gratified populace. So this is artistic advancements +1 to public order in all regions. And we can take a look at what research we want to do next. So I still haven't opened up any of the other units. We would need 3 more skirmishers and 2 more swordsmen. I'm surprised. We've recruited a lot of spearmen. So +5 upkeep, minus 30% recruitment cost for all units. Or we could go for scribes. Now, if we continue down this route, we will actually get a 35% research rate bonus. We'll get +15% income for all churches, and that's the main way that we make money. We have a 25% bonus for being Irish, +3 XP for generals per turn. Do you know what? Let's go and learn how to write some books. Now, I do need to start getting some money together, but again, our son's army is quite weak. So I will recruit for 550. That's a bit pricier than I wanted. Go on. Go on. This utterly useless fool, Tiernan, the governor of Leinster, his loyalty is not great. It is improving though. His governance is non-existent, so we'll give him a scribe. Now, I'm not too sure exactly what is going on here, or if I am reading this correctly. Here is, way up here, near Clonmacnoise, so there's Kilmore and Clonmacnoise, and there's the army commanded by the King of the Northern Enail, Donal, which means that at some point in time, A has died. Which makes Flanshina the new King of Tara and High King of Ireland. We've won. We've completed our objectives. The playthrough is over. Thank you very much for joining me on this playthrough. I hope you've enjoyed it. Oh, if only. So, what I think happened is that A's army, because I think A was in command, left Dublin, was hit by one of these 2 Viking armies, and was driven up to here. That's my understanding. I'm not entirely too sure as to what's actually gone on. It's kind of a confused scenario. But yeah, A is dead. These 2 armies haven't made landfall yet, so I'm kind of unsure as to what exactly has gone on over there. Not too sure what I'm going to do here either. I think if I move to... Oh, they're in Glendalough. I thought they were outside of it. That's perfect. I thought If I take Glendalough, I'm not going to be able to fight the army, I'm not going to be able to move. We can get the whole thing done. We can get the whole thing done. And so the army has been arrayed. We do battle in the shadow of Mount Fuji. Wait, no, that's a different Total War game. I have everyone laid out in a long line as always. I might see about trying to enact the shield wall. There's been comments to enact the shield wall. The problem is that, and this is why I haven't been using it, one of the reasons why I haven't been using it, units can't move while in this formation, and it mostly deals with missile block chance. So I might check it out here. Again, there hasn't been a massive need for it so far. They did, thankfully, put all their forces in the center, and they are withdrawing them. That's great. Guys, no, please come back. I want to talk. So let's see if we can get the horsemen in to deal some Ochran. So they should be in a position to start throwing their javelins now. They're going in a bit too close. I'm never happy with how close they get in.
Watch for missiles! Beware their javelins!
Okay, they actually caused a good bit of bedlam. Fair play to them. And I think it's actually caused their troops to come forward in a bit. Wasn't totally expecting that. That's a bit of a nuisance. We've actually parked ourselves right outside the forest, which will give them cover, which they can go into and start throwing javelins at us. That wasn't great.
Let's get to it!
So there you go. Look at this. As they're getting shot at. So shield walls, shield castles, things like this would not have been an aspect of warfare at this point in time in Ireland. If there's lads throwing spears at you, you go and poke them in the belly with a spear. That's how you deal with people throwing spears at you. So their king is giving battle, which is maybe not a great idea.
Right there!
And we might well actually be in a position to... Do you know what? There's not much left to charge. Ooh, this is not where we want to be.
Where's the fight coming? Strike now! Ravage them! Who's under us, grab them?
So just throw everyone into the melee. There's arrows coming in down on top of us. I thought it was their javeliners we were going for.
General! Ravage them! Strike now!
So if we can get the horsemen. Do you know what? We didn't lose many casualties there. We didn't lose many in a charge into their spearmen. And we're trying to charge down their horse boys, but I can't see this going very well. There we go. It would be handy to kill enough troops so that they don't remain on the field. I think we actually have. I don't think there's anything else bar their retreating horsemen, and we're not going to catch those. So we will end the battle for Glendalough. And thankfully the rebel army falls over Flanchina's first battle as High King of Ireland. We don't even have the option to take troops or anything. I don't think we really even needed it. We will occupy. And we now have, look at this, for a border. Look at this for a border.
We are eager for glory.
Next we have a march on Ferns. That's going to take a while. Probably 2 seasons. And here's a building chain that I haven't seen before. Lumberyard. Well, this is the logging camp, and we can upgrade it to a lumber yard, so increased timber production and decreased construction cost, or we could go for a much smaller timber production increase, but we would get public order and extra money. So I'm happy to decrease the construction cost across all regions. We have a cow. I'm actually going to hold off on upgrading to cattle grazing. We have a good chunk of food at the moment, but I'm going to hold off. And the other great thing is that public order, that negative penalty is dropping. And I think we're going to see the Reign of Blood end in one turn, and we're still going to have the Fair of Talthu for another 2 turns after that. So that's going to be handy. A big heap of upgrades there. So Eramon became industrious at the start of the turn, and Flanchina has become confident and averse to risk. The very definition of a safe pair of hands. So both of those were actually gained from decisive victories. Decisive victory when attacking, and a decisive victory when attacking a weaker target. And I didn't realise, but Flanchina actually has a chance to get an entourage member. I've gone with champion so far, and you know what? To help us with the marches that he's going to have, I will give him a quartermaster. I'm still a bit unhappy with the size of the army here in Clonmacnoise. And by the size, I mean kind of how many they've recruited, so I don't want to send them in against Kilmore yet, and I don't think that Donald's army is going to be in a position to take Kilmore, so I think we're in a position where we can hold off for another turn and let Donegal recruit more soldiers. And actually the worst thing is that we're now into the winter, so maybe now wouldn't be a great time to go traipsing around the place with soldiers. And one of the big problems is that Dublin has landed at Linz with a substantial force, so actual Dublin. And we have the other 2 Viking armies are in this region. They're still just sailing around. They haven't actually landed. Okay. And then we have Bray. Then we have Bray, and then we have Arguilla. And poor owl Donal has actually turned his forces around and started to march back in our direction. So, with Dublin landing at Linz, that puts them within striking distance of Kells. And we're just short. We're just short of Ferns. Do we want to begin the process of trying to march on Ferns, or do we want to turn our forces northwards? We could get them to the border. Oh, but if they're actually out of a building, they're going to suffer even on our own land, so we don't want them moving. We could get them to Invermore and get them onto Ferns in the next turn, but we are leaving the entire kingdom in danger. Do you know what? I'm going to take it. I'm going to bet that Dublin is going to push for Dublin. We will march to Invermore.
Move up to position.
And this was maybe an issue I didn't spot with our son, Donegal. He has no kind of mobile cavalry other than his own unit, and if something happens to that, he's in trouble. So we will add Arig horsemen. I have no javelineers, I have no skirmisher cavalry. So at the start of the next year, we're going to have to march him on Kilmore. I don't know if these guys are within distance. They're not. They won't be able to march on Clonmacnoise. They will be able to march on Noath. Probably then from there, Lochgower and Dublin, if that's their intention. And now to create some trouble for ourselves, we have a large food surplus that I could use to add another 4 units to Donegal's army. Instead, I'm going to go up on the next part of the chain for the Abbey of St. Kieran at Clonmacnoise. It's going to increase church income, going to give us some fame, decrease the construction cost in the local province, and it's going to add to the garrison. I think this was costing over 2,000, but we've gotten a bonus from the lumber yards, or the logging camps that we've taken in Glendalough. And that's going to be 8 turns. In 4 turns, we're going to get the cattle farm, so that will bring us over... We'd be -2 food at the moment if this was created instantly. That's going to open up another primary building area, and what I might use that for is actually a high cross. To see if we can build good relations with Connacht and form an alliance with them. Saint Ciaran of Glendalough is another saint who studied at Clonard, roughly around the same time as Saint Columba, or Saint Columkill, who described Ciaran as a lamp of knowledge, or a lamp of something. Ciaran left Clonard in 534, so I'm not too sure if they were contemporaries. But when he arrived at Clonard, he brought with him a cow, a dun cow, a yellowish-brown coloured cow. And the cow provided him with milk, and provided many of the other scholars there with milk. And after he was finished at Clonard, he went to the Aran Islands, and that's where, I think it was there, he received a prophecy that Christianity would spread to Britain and Europe from the centre of Ireland, and he took that as a prophecy to come and found Clonmacnoise, and he brought the cow with him. But when the cow died, her hide was kept as a relic. This was the hide of the dun cow. And there was a legend that if you died on the hide, you went directly to heaven. There was no going into the queue and waiting for people to pray for you to be let into heaven. You went straight to heaven, and there is an insert in one of the chronicles from the time that Taig, the king of Connacht, died having renounced the world on the dun cow, or on the hide of the dun cow. So apparently he died on the hide of the dun cow. But in 1106, the hide was used to make the Laur na Húdra, the book of the dun cow. It was used to make the cover of this book. And this book contains the earliest written copy that we have of Táin Bó Cholana, the cattle raid of Cooley, the great story of Queen Maeve's armies from Rathcroghan as they marched up to take the Brown Bull of Cooley and Cuchulain's defence of Ulster. The Táin was most likely written down for the first time in about the 700s, but the earliest copy that we still have, or that still exists, is in the Book of the Dun Cow. So there you go, some of the stories and legends around Clonmacnoise and who exactly Saint Ciaran was. I think if you look at the description, there's a bit there about the prophecy. Received a vision of a fruit-laden tree growing on the banks of a stream in the middle of Ireland, with branches spreading out over the entirety of the land. And he saw birds carrying the tree's fruits off to Britain and elsewhere. So there you go. No mention of the cow. Ah, you divils. And speaking of divils, we'll bring the year 883 to an end and keep a watch on these lads. So I was correct in my prediction that they were going to move from Linz to Noth. And it looks like what has happened is that Argyll brought its army up and attacked them. They had a 12-stack army here, Dublin, seized Noth, which then became a 14-stack army, and it looks as though Argyll has moved to intercept them and has effectively wiped them. So I had very briefly been considering a peace treaty with Dublin, because if we can take Ferns, I don't think we'd be in a position to then spin around and get back up there to try and take on Dublin and prevent them from coming into our territory. We don't need to do that anymore. We march on Ferns.
Show no mercy. On it.
And with this occupation, we have now seized the entirety of the province of Leinster, and we have increased our legitimacy by 5, expanding our kingdom. Your initial expansion in Ireland has proven your right to rule. To the other Irish kings, power is always respected, especially by the weak. And because St. Kieran's monastery, or whatever the next upgrade is, because that's going to be consuming so much food, or because it's going to reduce our food production by so much, we have the ability to increase cattle grazing at Untenvermoor. So plus 36 food, this would give 51 food, but reduced farm income. So 68 farm and 73 commerce. This would just give farm income, but like I said, I'm predominantly going for the food production. So we will go for cattle grazing. I was thinking that Donal was marching his army back up to his capital, but I forgot he has a huge building here. If he can just get through all of the anarchy that's going on, he has a huge building here that he could recruit forces in, so I presume he's trying to go in that direction. And Argyll is building a new army. I think we're still in a position where we can hold off for one turn just to get some more units together for our poor beloved son, Donegadon, and then on the next turn we will march on Kilmore. We have some good news. We have constructed a beach market. We have some bad news. The Vikings have finally figured out how to get out of their ships. They have landed. That is a hefty army. You're in a bit of trouble. And they're probably going to march on Dublin. I'm not too sure why or what's going on here, but Argyll has withdrawn its army. Oh no, it's going for Kilmore, isn't it? So it's left north under the command of the Vikings, who've put together a one-stack army. Right. Well, the good news is Flanchina is in a position to march on Wexford. I was thinking of raiding Ross first of all, but I think if we take Wexford, we could probably then seize down Kilvickeada and then again subjugate. I'm planning on subjugating Wexford and Waterford. We will begin the siege.
Kill them all.
This will be a hefty task. There we go. If we can try and maybe split their forces. So if we can hit the walls in 3 separate locations, we will maintain the siege without engaging in battle. They have a good solid garrison.
Go full out.
We're being told that there is a risk of rebellion in Bray. Oh god, I could hold the Fair of Talthu. It's just run out. I couldn't be bothered, but the problem is that if there is a rebellion, then that's going to cause a tremendous amount of trouble in that region. The other thing, actually, if we take Kilmore, we're going to be suffering more penalties in terms of public order as well. And to be bringing in Iron Veins. Do you know what?
Our bravery is legendary.
We'll march on Kilmore. Orders have been sent north. Donegal, get off your arse, you divil ya. You're 17. Go out and get a job. We have a numerical supremacy, however, our enemies do have slightly better forces. Now we have, of course, better armor and weapons, but they do have experience. They have chevrons, we do not. This lad doesn't even have a gold crown, he only has a silver crown. So moving the horsemen around, trying to bring them to the left-hand side and see if we can maybe hit the... not the axemen, they have those spearmen in a good position. We have managed to position ourselves idiotically behind a rock and a tree. Will that give us enough cover? Will they be able to see us from here? Not a hope. Not a hope. They'll never know we're here.
Who's for a Barney?
Nobody is for a Barney.
Swiftly now, men.
Oh, we are within archer range.
Let's get to it. Attack!
Let's see if we can send in a charge to make them run away.
Briskly now. Drive those horses for plunder. Let's get to it. Devil take the hindmost. Javelins. Missiles away. Devil take the hindmost.
So we did suffer a bit of casualties going in.
Cavalry.
The archers have good solid range, so they are taking apart the Fina Bend.
Ferns. Swiftly now, man. Enemy charge. Give your orders.
So the enemy is charging our javelineers.
Ferns. Shoot us here. Attack. Who's for a body? Javelins. Ferns. Hurry up there.
We will send in our swordsmen. We'll start bringing the cavalry forward again. They're actually sending them all in.
All over them.
So, no, they've decided to fall back.
Where's the fight? Spearmen. It's a charge. Swordsmen. They're upon us. Give your orders. Swordsmen. Crush them.
Would we be in a position
Now.
to charge?
Hit them.
There we go.
We're ready for this. Javelin.
We'll bring these guys back, not that they'd just be causing problems. Might have a number of heavy losses. We should hit their archers. It would have been better if we could have gotten the swordsmen in against the general, who is falling back from the field. I would like to have gotten the Donicadon in to rally the forces over here.
We are the Gales. Attack.
We'll see if we can mess with these archers enough to drive them back. Carul's forces have been heavily decimated. What are we seeing we're drawing there? Size 11. How hard is it to kill 2 men? There we go.
Sons of the Lord.
Lads,
Strike now.
you go in. What's happening over here?
Swordsmen.
Oh, I had the wrong units picked. Fantastic. We might be able to charge their general. He might give battle. There we go. Not too bad. Donica, well done. Good first day on the job. So we've given the enemy forces a beating. And we will sack the settlement.
For the glory of the Gales.
He's not in a position to move back until the start of the next turn. If we were to take that area, we will be taking it at some point in time once we go to war here, but the problem is that it's going to be a hefty job to try and keep this with the penalty like the one that we're getting at Bray. And Donica has gotten himself some upgrades. His command ability is non-existent. Go on, get yourself a champion. Do you know what? It's gonna take a while. So at Arda, we will begin the construction of cattle farms. This is going to give us 121 food production by all accounts. News will start travelling south to Flanshina of his son's fairly good enough performance. Good job. Good job, Donica. Good job. And we will continue to watch what madness, what anarchy is going to occur here. Argylla moving northwards, I'd say moving on Kilmore. And we have these two Viking armies. One of them most likely is going to hit Bray. And one or both of them will go for Dublin, if not for Skerries and Lochgower. Who knows? Bray is finished. That's not all that worrying. Eramon has become heroic. Oh no, we've lost Lochgower. Oh no, we've lost Kells. Well, the absolute devils anyway. A written record of history and scripture ensures greater foresight and learning in society. Designating quarters for full-time scholars will enable us to employ scribes to record all such knowledge with ink and quill. And let's see if we can actually find out what that building would do. So let's pretend that we're going to... Oh, I'd have to dismantle it. It won't let me just do this thing, the convert. So we'll have to wait until this is built before we actually get a look at the buildings. What of course we could do is wander around in here for a few minutes and see if we can find it. So public order and church income. Public order and church income, public order and church income, and by the time you get up to a scriptorum, you're talking about minus 30 food production, which is kind of fitting in the sense that the Irish would have been slaughtering potentially up to 50% of all cattle born annually for the production of vellum, so that's actually quite a fitting designation. And one of the other research options that we have at the moment is tools. And that's focusing predominantly on industry, so I wouldn't be interested in going down that route. And I should have actually checked, because it is here. The library is also food production public order, but it increases research rate for the faction. Interesting. Money is becoming a bit tight. We have a massive food deficit as a result of the fall of Kells. So I'm going to go for church music, which will give us plus 3 XP for generals per turn. And then after that is increased church income, which is going to help with that number. The governor of Mide, Eramon, can add a follower. I will give him a scribe. His governance is already at the top, but this will also give us a 5% income boost in the local province. So first things first, it is a tiny army at their disposal, but we will have to drive it out of Kells. Donica does not have time to celebrate the great looting and raiding that he's doing up here. Here is their general. All by his lonesome. I'll fight it manually. So hopefully he will give us something resembling a battle, by which I mean hopefully he'll stand still and actually fight us. Oh, I thought it was an actual horse unit. It's not.
We could use some help here.
Well, you most certainly could use some help. Then a very good bit of an old cavalry charge might do some good. Do you know what? We'll just have them walk for a while. I've been looking around a bit, and we can take this opportunity while we're waiting for these forces to show up. I've been looking around a bit to see, is it possible to organize an alliance for Donica? Is it possible to see if the King of Connacht has a daughter, an eligible daughter, for him to be married off to? What do we have here? We have a unit. Is this... That isn't the man himself, is it? holding a relic. That is very interesting. It wouldn't have been on horseback, and it wouldn't have been held by a commander, but at this point in time, relics were taken into battle. Holy relics were taken into battle, and they would have been... The tradition was to carry them 3 times around the army sunwise. And that was to bless the army, but clerics would have them. Young clerics were chosen for the job, because they had a better chance of making it off the field. And it was the hereditary members, it was members of the hereditary families that that guarded and protected the relics. I mentioned about Columkill's Psalter that he copied. Are these lads coming in against us? Well, fair play to you. Well, fair play to you. But that was known as... So the book that he copied, his family managed to keep it, and this became known as the Cathach of St. Columba, the Battler of St. Columba, and it would be taken into battle. That wasn't much of a charge. But is there any way of actually organising a marriage for Donica, or do I just click the button that says find a woman for him and just marry him off to whatever random character pops up? Fair play to them, they're holding well. Never mind. Do you know what? There's only one of them. We'll run him down, or wherever he's gone to. So 1 loss. It wasn't the worst. So we have a victory and 2,000 gold. Oh wait, no, we shouldn't. We will occupy the settlement. The next bit of trouble we're going to be faced with up here is that this army is now within striking distance of Clonmacnoise. So I need to take a look at what way things are here. In 5 turns, this building is going to be built, which is going to reduce us, if I am correct, to 2 food. We will get this one built, which is telling us it's going to give us 55 in 2 turns. I'm not so sure about that, but we are going to need, unfortunately, to start recruiting. Maybe not an army that's going to be able to take on these guys, but at least an army that can survive in the field. So that is expensive in terms of food, and it is expensive in terms of money. But we will add to the cattle drivers. And I think that might very well have opened up some military opportunities for us. Melee specialists, our swordsmen are doing quite well at the moment. So we could replace the current swordsman with Rather swordsmen by going down this route. So we'll continue focusing on the church music, get that out of the way. The +3 for generals will be tremendous. And we should be in a position to siege Wexford. Now the problem is that it is Waterford that is on the verge of moving out from Lochgower to take Clonmacnoise. They probably will too, because I don't think they're in a position to take Dublin unless both of them siege it. Oh, these divils. These divils. We will start our deployment in the rain. Here is a very interesting looking map, which is kind of upside down. If you were to actually flip it from top to bottom, it would be somewhat accurate. So the actual Viking settlement of Wexford would be here, we'll say. And this kind of loop that goes up, that's up here, and the river continues up in this direction. So it's kind of somewhat accurate, but it's an interesting defensive location. A very interesting defensive location, and you can see why the coast made for such an interesting place for Vikings to come to. It's going to be a tough one to siege. Now, we do have a bit of an issue, which I didn't think about, and that is that I have put a substantial amount of the forces on horseback, or I've left a substantial amount of the forces on horseback, which could be ever so slightly problematic. I'm trying to divide their forces a bit. I don't know if this is something that I want to do, however. I might get them to here instead. The goal is to try and hit either side of the gate, take the gate, and then have these guys down here maybe as a diversion to hit into the side and to try and maybe draw some of their forces. That's the goal. That's the goal. Whether it works or not now is the next question. So maybe it would have been a good idea to have brought one or two battering rams, just the way we could have gotten those forces in, the horsemen in earlier. So I think we're just coming into range of their archers. We do have some bowmen over here as well. So we'll start bringing our spearmen over, getting ready to hit the walls, and we'll start bringing the javeliners in as well. But they could very well just be committed to... I'll bring them to here. So we actually don't have a tremendous amount of forces with which we could use to take these walls. And it looks like we're at the walls. So we're making contact here. These guys are falling back, which is good. And I think we could be in a position, if we can get some of these guys through.
Spearman! Strike now! Spearman!
Well, we actually have one of the walls completely. Nobody's challenging us. That's great. These guys. Okay, everyone's making for this siege tower. And a bit dangerous, but we'll bring our general forward and get him to just drop an owl morale boost. So they're bringing through a good chunk of forces here. Now it's showing the gate open. I don't believe that that gate is open. And we've taken here, so we have managed to distract them enough, and we're hitting one of their forces here. We're going to try and take this wall, and that would actually allow our general through. The doors are shut again by the looks of it. So we're actually doing a great job over here. And these guys are falling back. It's telling us that gate is open. I'm not too sure if we want to start sending the High King through that gate. That is a very inviting gate. That gate is too inviting.
Javelins! Devil take the hindmost!
Oh, somebody's going for the road. I don't think I want them to do that. Or going for the gate. It looks like the gate has been taken.
Swordsmen, ravish them!
They're telling us we have a victory. So we're charging in through the gates. And they had some solid. Units. This is much more in. This is a very good depiction of what Viking settlements would have looked like in Ireland, even at this point in time. It'd be great to see Dublin. I might do some battles sometime in Dublin. As in just the one-off battles, we'll say. So we have a victory. And you know what? As we have a victory, we will end the battle. And we might be in a position to use the forces to recruit some to ourselves. So not too shabby. Again, maybe this is how the difficulty level is handled. You just lose less forces, but we handled things fairly well. Got to the walls in time, managed to split their forces. They had a lot of forces held back in reserve that they weren't able to commit to the defense of the central gate. And they're all dead. Every single one of them. Okay. So we're in a position to occupy or sack, not subjugate. Oh. We will occupy.
Agreed.
So the Viking presence in Ireland is under threat. They have lost a second Longport. And it's got them worried. Dublin is stepping in, trying to get the other Viking interests to unite behind them. Could this be the beginning of the end of the Viking Sea Kings? So again, we have the ability to appoint a governor to Wexford. Nobody is looking great. Warrior, I could use that feasibly for the recruitment cost to sword and axe infantry. 25% upkeep cost for sword, or minus 25. So that's the upkeep cost, and that's the recruitment cost. And I'd like for either of these two, if needed, to serve as generals. So Faircar, I will select you as the governor of Wexford. We barely had the money for that. He's a bit more loyal than the other lad was. That's good at least. Dear God, this place is literal hell. Plus 2%, so we'll have to repair these things. We can't repair that. Now we can just about repair this one. Plus 5 fame. We get commerce income and armor and weapons damage. Well, that's not much good to us, but we'll repair it anyway. And we'll hold off, because we don't have a choice, on repairing this one to the next turn. What I would like to try and do... We've low loyalty from Faircar, we've some damaged buildings and a risk of rebellion. What I would like to try and do is I would like to, now that we kind of have to, I would like to take Ross. And then form a peace treaty with the Vikings, and because Dublin has just seized all of the Viking territory, the Viking armies have evaporated. We will be in a position to hold off for one more turn. I'm hoping take Ross and try to form a peace treaty with the Vikings. That is going to be the goal. Flanchina has become horribly scarred. Oh lord. Enemy morale goes down -3. Again, is this because they're terrified of him? This man was properly carved up by the enemy and survived. He will always have the scars. Faircar has gained 1 level in Governor of Wexford. And Dublin has indeed landed its forces I don't know where the hell they've come from, but it landed forces at Linz. It now has 9 troops in this region. They could potentially threaten poor Donegal. We have a massive food deficit, and I'm not entirely too sure how to fix it quickly, or even where it's come from. I think the easiest thing that we can do is
My warriors are unparalleled.
head for Ross, seize Ross.
Kill them all
I think we'll suffer some
immediately.
casualties. We won't. We will occupy. And now let's see if we are in a position to form a peace treaty with Dublin. The poor divils, they are absolutely shredded, and they are only too happy to accept an alliance, or I should say a peace treaty. They would actually also accept an alliance. We'd be talking about Waterford, we'd be talking about a chunk of Dublin, but not Dublin, and we'd be talking about the Isle of Man. It would be an interesting alliance, and we would have some Viking forces at our disposal, or Viking allies, but their strength has diminished greatly. They would probably end up dragging us into a few wars, and so, for a substantial sum of money, there will be peace between the High King of Ireland and the Vikings.
I suppose we must accept this.
Down here in Wexford, we have a workshop. It's damaged, it's generating -1 public order and 80 industry income. I'm going to dismantle that building. And we have lots and lots and lots of opportunities and options for buildings that we could put here in its place. We could increase the garrison. Well, we actually have 2 buildings that we can put here now. So I'm going to spend some time taking a look at that to see what would be best to put here. We could end up putting in more grain pits and things, because God knows we need the food. I'd say we're going to put a high cross in Clonmacnoise, just for the fame. And we don't even really need it, but it's thematic. It's thematic. So I'm not too sure what we're actually going to put down here. But there you go. We have secured Wexford. We have secured peace with the Vikings. We are at peace on the island of Ireland for the first time in a long time. And what is our major goal going to be now? Are we going to turn on our allies in Alloch and Argyll? We have to take Ardvaca. We have to take the Grianon of Alloch. I'm 4 episodes in and I haven't done anything to achieve the main objective, bar expand Clonmacnoise. The other thing that we need is Cashel. So we have to march on Cashel to take the Rock of Cashel, and then down to, we're seeing some rebellions in this region, and down, down, down to Rosscarbery for the... Is it that monastery? No, that's Inishfallen. There we go. There it is, the Church School of Ross. So Inishfallen is the capital of this region. That's interesting. And another option we have, of course, is trying to form some sort of an alliance with Connacht. That's the one and only region on the island that we do not need to go to war with. So I would like to try and organise a marriage there if possible. If somebody knows if that's possible, do comment below. If not, I'm just gonna try and form an alliance with them. And you know what? We have the money. We have the technology. I'm going to build a forge. I'm not, I already have a forge. We're going to build a forge to increase our armor and weapons damage and to begin the preparation for whatever war is next. Thank you all very much for joining me on this episode, and I hope you will join me on the next one. And I hope if you have one at your disposal, you'll be able to watch the episode sitting on the hide of a dun cow.